The devil made me do it. Or did he? Well, we don't know. Well, what happens when that argument becomes the center of a court case? Join us today on Speaking of Spirits as we discuss the devil made me do it case. All right, thanks for joining us today. We appreciate you being with us. Today we're going to talk about what I call the devil made me do it case. This is a case that actually spun a book and a movie, probably most of you are familiar with. This case started what became known, the book and the movie, The Conjuring. But let's go back to where it really began, and that is in February 16th of 1981. Back then, Arnie Johnson stabbed his then landlord, Alan Bono, 22 times with a 5-inch pocket knife. Becoming...
that's pretty gruesome.
Yeah, that's pretty intense. Becoming Brookfield, Connecticut's first murder in 193 years. So this is where we're going to start the story. Now this, right off the top, we've got some really interesting combination of things. To stab somebody 22 times, that's, psychopath, extreme anger, or true love.
Yeah. True love.
Most sincerest.
Yes, because 22 times to stab somebody, that's kind of personal. Man.
Yeah, that is kind of personal. That's a lot of anger and rage.
Yeah. But to do that with a 5-inch pocket knife, that is not your traditional weapon.
Usually it's the guy going through the kitchen, through the kitchen drawers and finding the big old steak knife.
Getting a good knife in there. Yeah, a 5-inch pocket knife is usually not a weapon that's used in a situation like that. So that's...
It does damage, though.
It can, yes. Well, obviously it did.
Yeah, it sure did.
It obviously did, yeah.
Well, 22 times.
Bono died about an hour after this event, so...
Yeah.
Wow.
He died.
I bet you he was wishing for a bigger knife.
Yeah.
Odd.
They arrested Arnie Johnson very shortly after that, within a couple of hours, and he had no recollection of the events.
Drugs will do that.
They will. So...
Yeah.
Now, we'll come back to that. There's an interest. There was some alcohol involved.
I'm sure there was.
But not by Johnson.
Really?
Yes.
That's the other type of spirits.
Yes, those are the...
We were talking earlier about the title of our podcast, Speaking of Spirits, and it's either the paranormal spirit kind or the kind that I truly love.
Yes.
The alcohol.
Yeah. We can go either way on that.
Yeah, so if the paranormal gig doesn't work out for us, we're going to change our format.
Or you can mix them both together.
Oh, that's even better.
Speaking in spirits until you can't say spirits.
Speaking until we can't speak. Okay. So, anyway, this event happened February 1981.
Yeah.
Now, this gets interesting. This case involves the Warrens, Ed and Lorraine Warren. And the next day, they were actually working on a case connected to this beforehand. And the next day, Lorraine Warren actually told the sheriff that Johnson was under demonic influence when he did the attack. So what that led to is after speaking with the Warrens, Johnson's attorney actually wanted to use that in court, that he was under demonic influence.
Were they successful?
They were not. The judge immediately threw that out.
Yeah.
But they had some priests lined up. They had the Warrens lined up. They had everybody lined up to go in there. The judge threw that out. I think they went with a self-defense argument in place of the demonic possession. But
on the murderer.
on the murder, yeah.
Interesting.
Now, I said alcohol was involved. A little bit deeper investigation. The story was, as we said, because there were some witnesses there. Bono, who had just moved into the area, was obviously a landowner, and he also owned a kennel.
Okay.
Johnson was at the kennel with his girlfriend and his girlfriend's niece, who was young, by the name, I believe her name was Mary, the niece. Bono showed up at the kennel drunk and got a hold of Mary and would not let her go. And so Johnson intervened, and this is when he ended up stabbing Bono.
Or turned into a werewolf.
Or turned into a werewolf. And, yeah, anyway. So that's what was going on. Now, the Warrens were previously involved. There was an 11-year-old boy, David Grotzel. Yes, I had work on the last name, Grotzel.
Grotzel, yeah.
11-year-old David Grotzel was claimed to be possessed by demons, and the Warrens were contacted. The Warrens came in, and when the demon left David, it jumped over into Arnie. And that's what the demon was possessing Arnie when he did this murder.
Very convenient.
Let's talk a little bit more about the Warrens, shall we?
Okay.
Right away. Anything they're involved in, I'm immediately skeptical.
Yes.
I got some issues.
I know a lot of people out there love them and think that they're the real deal, but I'm not one of them. I'm just putting that out there for Radioland. Just totally not one of them.
Me neither.
Yeah.
Follow the money trail.
Yeah. So the Warrens got involved in this Conjuring case, right? So even before that, it was the Amityville case. Okay. But
Amityville was actually before this one, yes.
Yeah, because But we'll circle back around to that.
Okay.
So they got involved in this whole Conjuring case. And I'm sure a lot of you've seen the movie. I saw the movie, The Conjuring, because, Halloween. It's the greatest month of the year.
Absolutely.
So you watch all of that. And so they're always fun to watch. So the Conjuring case was the Perron family who lived in this old farmhouse in Rhode Island, Harrisville, Rhode Island. So Roger and wife Carolyn purchased the home in 1970. And it was on 200 acres, which has then been subdivided down to a little over 8. So, and it is for sale currently as we speak. And yeah. I mean, I would love to own it just because it's a beautiful home in a beautiful area in a great haunted state, and I would love to own it. But
yes.
They moved out in June of 1980. So, the Perron, Andrea Perron, wrote a book called, it was self-published, 2011, called The House of Darkness, House of Light. And it was about their experiences in this home. Okay? So, and they reached out to Lorraine Warren about the haunting. And ultimately ended up selling the movie rights to, I think, movie producer Tony DeRosa Grund, who they then, I guess, made the movie The Conjuring. The Conjuring was about, again, this house. Ed, or at least Lorraine Warren was involved. I don't know if Ed was at this time. And it was about the haunting of a witch called Bathsheba Bathsheba Sherman. Born Bathsheba Thayer in Rhode Island in 1812, she married Judson Sherman in Thompson, Connecticut in 1844. And allegedly she became a witch. Whether that's true or not, there isn't any historical documentation that I could find that says that she is a witch. You know, more than likely, she was probably really good at herbal medicine, which a lot of people were at the time. There is a picture of her on the farm, and she lived next door to the Sherman farm in her early 70s, and she passed away in the spring of 1885. So,
Just a quick note, Ed Warren passed away in 2006.
Okay, so it was just Lorraine at this point, yeah. So, in the videos promoting this House of Darkness, House of Light, a lot of people believe that the whole Conjuring thing was nothing but a staged thing to sell the book and a staged thing to sell the movie. And there were quite a lot of claims about the hauntings in this house. And as paranormal investigators, you know, one of the things that we do when somebody contacts us is we ask them, they will contact me, and I make usually the initial contact with somebody. They'll tell me everything, but I won't tell my team hardly anything when we walk in the door. Only maybe that there's kids involved or whatnot, because I want them to have their own experiences. I don't want any preconceived notions when we walk through the door. I may know what the homeowner is told, and usually the homeowner is not 100% forthcoming with us either, with me. But I just have such a hard time with this. So the whole thing, the whole movie and book is reportedly about this Bathsheba Sherman, who she was a witch. There was allegedly an infant who died in her care. When the baby was examined, it was determined that the mortal wound was caused by a large sewing needle, or it's also been described as a knitting needle. Okay, had been impaled in the base of the child's skull. Yes. So the townspeople believe that Bathsheba sacrificed the infant as an offering to the devil. Due to insufficient evidence, the court found she was innocent of any wrongdoing. But even though her name was cleared, the town still, you know.
Well, the town's not going to believe that.
Right.
Well,
So,
in today's world, that doesn't happen. So, can you imagine back then?
right.
Man.
Exactly.
In the book, Andrea Perrin described her mother, Carolyn, talking to a man she refers to as Mr. McEachern. Supposedly, this Mr. McEachern told Carolyn that Bathsheba treated the help badly, and she starved and beat the Sherman farm staff. So a lot of negative stuff about this Bathsheba.
Is any of it true?
Well, so it's kind of interesting. You know, like we were talking on other podcasts about. And if you've seen the movie, there's just, the movie's just, if there's an ounce of credibility in that movie, it's kind of hard to find. Mm-hmm. Because I have never seen, in years and years, decades of doing paranormal work, I have never seen things like happen in these movies. Amityville Horror, you just don't see that level. Does it happen? Perhaps. Never seen it.
Doubt it.
Right. Do doors close once in a while? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Do we get orbs? Do we get interaction with our equipment? Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Will a cabinet door open once in a while? Yes. Chairs move, tables move? Yes.
Disembodied voices? We'll
yes.
actually hear people?
Yes. We've done. But everything, every day, and every day? No.
Yeah.
I mean, it just doesn't, even houses that we've investigated that are clearly active, doesn't happen every day. No. So you're going down the rabbit hole of trying to figure out what is real and what is not in the story The Conjuring. Led me to a YouTube video put out by the current homeowner named Norma Sutcliffe. Now, she and her husband have lived in this house for the last, I think, 26 or 27 years, I think, as of the time of the YouTube video. And she's really hot.
Well, yeah, she lived there before the movie came out.
Exactly.
Yeah.
She's really upset. She said that pretty much everything is a lie, and that she's had numerous conversations with Andrea Perron, and that Andrea Perron has none of it's factual.
Yeah.
Okay, so Norma Sutcliffe is disputing all of the claims of Bathsheba and the deaths on the property, because Andrea had described all of these deaths that had happened on the property. So Norma got mad, and she got what I do. You get fired up and you go start looking for the facts. And she started going to the historian, even though Andrea said she did. And she started photocopying the birth certificates, the death certificates, the homeowner information. I mean, she really did a pretty exhaustive search on the property, the people involved. And it was like one thing after another she disproved. Fact after, claim after claim after claim that the Perrons had made. Norma disproved it all. Now, is Norma correct? I don't know. Was the stuff doctored? I don't know. I'm having until you go to the Historical Society and you get your hands on those records, you don't know. So,
but Andrea did say it's much nicer crying in a Ferrari.
Yeah.
Right? So, and here's, the Lorraine, so when Lorraine Warren was called in, according to Andrea, when I guess Ed was also, he must have been still alive at the point when they first made initial contact, because they said that they expected, in conjunction with the tale of Bathsheba Sherman, that Lorraine suggested that Bathsheba could have taken the needle with her to the afterlife and used it to stab Carolyn in the calf. Carolyn Perron had this mysterious wound in her calf. Well, she could have scraped it on something, I don't know, but allegedly she had this weird. So Lorraine Warren is suggesting that from the afterlife, Bathsheba took this knitting needle and stabbed Carolyn in the calf.
Okay, I have more questions than answers at this point.
And that there was a demonic presence in the Perron house, and it was Bathsheba.
Well, out of all the things that I'd want to take with me to the afterlife,
A knitting needle will definitely be one of them.
yes, number one on the list.
Yeah. So they had a $13 million budget for this movie. They rebuilt the Conjuring house on a soundstage in Wilmington, North Carolina. It looked vastly different, the soundstage one, from the real one. Anyway, in the Conjuring, in the real farmhouse is often referred to by the Perron family as the old Arnold estate. It's still standing in Harrisville, Rhode Island. The barn is also standing and is located to the left of the house. So the lot now went from 200 acres down to 8.5. The subsequent owners have referred to the property by other names in addition to the Arnold estate, also the Old Brook Farm, and the Richardson house, named after the family that built it. The current owners are Norma Sutcliffe and Jerry Nelfrich. They're no relation to the Perron family. Andrea Perron said 8 generations of one extended family lived and died in that house prior to their arrival, to the Perrons' arrival.
Oh, wow.
And some had never left.
Know how that feels.
That's also a small town thing, how you give directions. You turn it to Richardson Place.
Yeah, you know the oak tree? Yeah. You've gone too far if you hit it. So they said that Perron also claimed that the property had been the host to 2 suicides by hanging, 1 suicide by poison, a rape, and a murder of an 11-year-old Prudence Arnold by farmhand, 2 drownings, and the passing of 4 men who froze to death. So, a lot of tragedy, according to the Perrons. So,
Some of that's very questionable.
well, yeah. So then you get
I mean,
in.
even on 200 acres, how do you freeze to death?
Well,
you're
there
not
were
that
two.
far from.
Sutcliffe did find two people who did freeze to death, and they did. So
Okay.
one of them was, let's see, Edward Arnold. He did freeze to death, but not on the farm. It was a little further away from the farm, like down the road. I guess it was in the 1800s. And he was trying to make his way home. I don't know if he had a problem with his carriage or something. Anyway, he didn't. He froze.
Okay.
And another guy, his name was Jarvis Smith. He did freeze to death in a shed away from the house. He'd been drinking, and it was in 1901. And he tried to get out of the elements. Went into the shed because he was drunk. He fell asleep and froze to death.
Okay, now that makes sense. Okay, yeah. If you get a bad storm coming in, you get disoriented.
Yeah.
Lose your way. You can't find your way home.
Right. And he'd been accused of murder and not convicted.
Okay.
So
and then dealing with the other spirits caused the other one. So that makes sense. Okay.
So, I listened yesterday to this Norma Sutcliffe video on YouTube, and you can find it.
Cool.
If you have the internet.
You do have it now.
No. If
you have
you have the internet.
Okay. So here's some of the claims of the parents that Norma has refuted, right? Mm-hmm. Warner Brothers said, parents said that Warner Brothers gave Norma Sutcliffe full security because of the amount of public interest in this movie. Norma says absolute false. They have been plagued, their neighbors have been plagued night and day since this movie came out with trespassers, with people cutting their fences. They actually had to sell all of their livestock because they were afraid the livestock would be harmed, and people were letting the livestock loose by cutting fences.
That's not good.
People trespassing, people recording, videotaping them, coming up to their windows in the middle of the night. It's just been chaos for them and their neighbors. It's a terrible thing to live under. Terrible thing to live under.
That's not good.
Warner Brothers, parents said Warner Brothers paid the local police department. Sutcliffe said nope, did not. And so the amount of chaos is caused in this tiny little town. Police department has, it's just been terrible. Mm-hmm. Perrin and her parents said that she and her family had nothing to do with the movie. It was based on the Warren files. Sutcliffe says actually they called Andrea Perrin, and they collaborated with Andrea Perrin, the movie studio. Mm-hmm. And so Sutcliffe actually said she had a conversation with Andrea about all of this stuff. Andrea actually brought a reporter to her house, to Sutcliffe's house, the old, Andrea's old house. Norma Sutcliffe said Andrea claimed to have been thrown across the cellar during this interview. Norma said, I'm standing right there, none of this happened. The reporter actually left and then called Norma later and said she didn't want anything to do with it because she said it was all such a hoax. She didn't want anything to do with it. She didn't want her name on it. She said a fraud was being perpetuated. So New Line.
And that was from a reporter?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's saying something,
right?
isn't it?
Well, yeah. New Line cinema producer Tony DeRosa Grun claimed that this is another Norma claim that Tony Grun called Carolyn and Andrea while at the home. I guess I think Norma must have been there, and that he heard in the background all these dishes flying around and breaking against the walls and whatnot because the house was so mad that Andrea and Carolyn were back in the house. And Norma's like, that never happened. What are you talking about? Anyway, there's one claim after another. I guess Norma Sutcliffe actually ran a child daycare center out of this house.
Well, for a while.
Yeah. So, so Andrea said that there was a child that continuously levitated from the crib, and Norma would constantly see the child out of the crib and on the floor. And Norma's like, that never happened. So it was just one thing after another, and it all boils back to the Warrens. Mm-hmm. A lot of this goes back to the Warrens. And so Sutcliffe lays out some lawsuits and some interesting things about the Warrens. So I started looking that stuff up. So the Amityville Horror, which was the kind of the first time Ed and Lorraine Warren came into, I think, the limelight.
Well, that was probably the first story that came out nationwide that mentioned that.
Right. So I know I was, hook, line, and sinker, Amityville Horror, right? Yeah, got me. 1977, right? The Warrens in that movie, if you recall, the Warrens were involved with the Lutz family in that movie. But according to Norma Sutcliffe's research, the Lutzes had already moved out of the house when the Warrens were called in by, I don't know who called in the Warrens, actually. And so Ed and Lorraine walked in there and said it was just, a cluster of demons in the house. Well, the guy, the book author, Jay Anson, came forward years ago and said that a lot of the stuff was fabricated in the book. It was fiction. But it was presented as fact. And so those people as well have been plagued by people night and day driving by the Amityville house, taking pictures and bothering them, and So and then there was another haunting in Connecticut, according to Norma Sutcliffe, a book written by Ray Garton. That was Ed Warren and Ray Garton together making up the story. And so, according to Norma, that Ray Garton claimed years later, and it was all made up, it was all fiction. So, and then you have The Devil in Connecticut, right? Mm-hmm. The little boy that you're talking about, the Glatzels.
Yes.
Right. So there was a book written, and when they wanted to come out and republish the book in 2007, the Glatzel brothers got together and sued Warrens to stop it, because they said it's just it's false, and it just turned their lives inside out and backwards, and they didn't want to go through it again. I don't blame them.
No, I don't blame them either.
Yeah, and another lawsuit was filed by the Carmody, I'm not sure if I'm saying that right, Carmody family, who moved into the Amityville house after the Lutzes left. They sued Lutz and Anson, the author of that book, about the constant harassment that came out after the Warrens made everything up. So, I mean, are the houses haunted? I don't know. Never been in there. Don't know. Could there be activity? Yeah, the houses are old. Could there be activity? Sure.
Well, yeah, especially in that part of the country. It's the oldest part of our country.
Right.
Some of those houses go back to long ways.
Right.
Yeah, I'm sure they've got something in there.
Absolutely. But this is where I just have such a hard time with Hollywood getting involved with anything. The amount of lying and fabrication that go on, we see it in some of the paranormal shows.
See it in a lot of them.
Right. Because, most of them. You
Demons
lose that.
everywhere.
Yeah.
Yes. And a lot of the teams out there that have these shows say they lose the ability to control the message, the narrative, and things get made up because it's all about a numbers game and viewers and then paying advertisement and all this stuff. And it's just, years ago, we were approached for a possible show, turned it straight down. The money would have been nice, but not enough to risk the reputation that I've worked really hard for our team and throughout the years for me to be credible. I don't want to lose control. And it's not the control. I don't want to lose what you work so hard.
Well, yeah, absolutely.
And you lose all of that. So was there an ounce of credibility to the Conjuring house? I don't know. But anytime, and half of our audience is going to hate this, but I swear anytime I feel that the Warrens got involved, I don't think, in my opinion, they're not credible. Maybe they were on some of their cases, but when I hear that they got together with people to create things, books and stories, and
my biggest, now I recognize what the Warrens did for the field of paranormal research. They actually did a lot for the field, and I acknowledge that. But Ed, especially Ed, was very much influenced by the Catholic Church.
Mm-hmm.
Usually, it was a Catholic priest that would reach out and contact the Warrens.
Mm-hmm.
Not always. Sometimes the homeowner directly would contact them, especially after the books started coming out. And Ed in Lorraine, Ed was actually doing really good traveling around speaking on the paranormal.
Mm-hmm.
So now that's pretty much my dream job. Okay.
Yeah, right.
You know, I'd love to do that. But my biggest problem is that whether he was so influenced by the Catholic Church or what, but everything to him was a demon.
And we do see that with certain religions that, you know, the customers we work with.
And I can, you know,
Yeah.
again, to fall within the, you know, the teachings of the Catholic Church and how they explain everything, you know, but, and I've gone over this before, they think everything's either an angel or a demon.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, the analogy that I use for that, it's like saying, well, all music is either country or Western.
Right.
Which is fine, but where would you classify a Beethoven symphony?
Right.
A Sousa march? You know, if you're trying to define all music with just, it's
Right.
either country or Western, you're missing a lot of. And the same thing with the spiritual world. If you think everything's either an angel or a demon, there's a whole lot you're going to really struggle with
Right.
trying to identify.
Dead Uncle Fred. Right.
And
So,
Which candle to light?
Yeah.
yeah. So the one thing that, you know, that I've struggled with for a long time when I read that, what was it, the Annabelle dolls? The Annabelle doll? Alleged haunted doll that they have in the glass case. That this guy, this reporter came out, or this dude on this motorcycle came out, touched the doll, and then had a horrible accident on his way home. But Ed would never say who that was to lend some credibility to the story. It's like, well, then let's talk to this dude. Did it really happen? Did he touch the doll and then drop his motorcycle? Okay, so let's talk to him and how shook up he is. But so those claims, these little tiny little kernels of all of these little claims out there that could never be, there was never any follow-up with the people who were the alleged victims in a lot of this stuff. It's so, it makes it so hard, because that's why I think.
Well, yeah, the lack of detail.
Right. And then you work so hard in the paranormal field to build a reputation and to do right by your clients. And then they look at these movies, The Conjuring, and I cannot tell you how many times somebody has called me and said, I hear a knock of 3 in the middle of the night at 3 a.m.
Cut your trees.
Right. Well, and okay, 3 goes back to the Trinity, right? Goes back to the Father, the Son, Holy Ghost. That's usually a Catholic thing. Mm-hmm. And it's, you know, because the movie plays on the fears. The Conjuring is nothing but fear.
It's not. And one of all of the movies that the Warren, and they've got, I don't know how many, 3 out, and then 2 or 3, I don't know. They got a few movies out now. Every movie that involves every case they've ever done, I'm usually screaming at the screen, it's not a demon, which is why I'm not allowed in some movie theaters anymore.
Mark's been thrown out.
Yes, but it's not a demon. But,
Only 3 times.
So just going through a lot of that stuff and just looking at it and go, no, this is not right. This does not make sense. Okay, I get it. You're making a story. It is a story.
Right.
Don't try to pass it off as fact. Yeah.
Yes,
that really happened.
That's where I draw the line. If they were in it to make the buck, good for them. That's great. That's awesome. They made quite a lot of money, and good for them, you know. But don't play on people's fears that everything is demonic, and don't pass it off as being 100% legit, because now we know, according to some of these lawsuits, it wasn't. Now, I've never met them. Maybe I would change my tune if I had that opportunity to have worked with them or meet them. I don't know. I'm honestly saying that this isn't coming from envy. This is not coming from that place. You know, this is coming from just represent what you do legitimately and don't BS people.
Hypocrisy is horrible.
Yeah.
Everywhere.
It's everywhere.
One of the things that I discovered, well, I don't think I discovered it. I think I knew it. I was just reminded of it. And Ed was a speaker. He did tour around and Lorraine, they were both on the speaking tour. But when I was doing the research that I was looking at, I was reminded that they did have an agent with the William Morris Talent Agency. And so as soon as I heard that just
Now
kind of
what?
set
I
up.
didn't know
They
this.
actually had an agent with the William Morris Talent Agency.
So
Those-
this sounds all Hollywood to me.
Yeah. for
Maybe
those
we
of
should
you
get an
who don't
agent.
know,
Let's get an agent.
yeah. The William Morris Talent Agency is one of the biggest, best-known talent agencies in Hollywood and in the music industry, in the voiceover
wow.
industry, for somebody, and to this day, they're still very well known in that world. But yeah, Ed and Lorraine had a agent.
And I hate to say, I mean, I believe they have children or a child, and I hate to say anything negative about these people, because they have family. And I just, again, goes back to being legitimate, being honest.
Well, for me, it goes back to, getting some information. Again, I mentioned Ed thought everything was a demon.
Right.
Everything. And that is my pet peeve when it comes to the paranormal. That just pets me the wrong direction. So it really bothers me when people do that. But I also have to say, after Ed passed away, Lorraine became a lot more balanced. She was not nearly as quick to call everything a demon.
Yeah, and
So between after Ed passed away and when Lorraine was on her own, she actually became a lot better. I got to where I could at least deal with listening to her.
And this Andrea Perrin, again, I've never met the Perrins. I don't know these people. Did they have experiences in this house? Maybe they did. The interesting thing about the paranormal is that no two people experience it the same. And you can have a house like the house I grew up in, which was bananas haunted. I think my mom helped that with all of her gifts and abilities. The people who bought it from us, whose family still lives there today, has never had an experience in that house.
Yeah.
So, does that mean that our haunting wasn't real? Nope. But they're not experiencing it. Are they not open to it? I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe we're not normal. Maybe it could be. Yeah. But not everybody experiences the same thing. So could it have been bananas haunted when the parents lived there? Absolutely. And then the Sutcliffes move in and there's no haunting? Yep, that happens. Absolutely happens. Where I draw the line is when stories about the historical people who lived there were falsified.
Mm-hmm.
That's where I draw the line. Just be truthful. Just be truthful. You say all these hangings and all the suicides. The current homeowner alleges she's gone to all of the records departments and can't find this information. Did 2 people freeze to death? Yes.
Mm-hmm.
She did find that. One was on the farm, not in the farmhouse, not in the barn. It was in a shed, and one wasn't even on the farm. Was it associated with the property? Not really. It was a guy who owned the property who died. That's just like saying somebody who owned my property could have died on the freeway. Doesn't mean that the house had anything to do with it. So
Exactly.
That's where I draw the line. Just be truthful. If you're writing the story about your haunting in your own home, just be truthful.
Mm-hmm. Let the truth set you free. But as with just about all the podcasts,
Wow,
that's got to be a
that's
word,
really nice
right?
grammar going on there.
On all of our previous podcasts, it always kind of boils down to us regular people are really the scary ones in the stories.
Yep.
And that's how it is. Like the horror of the current landowner having people invade the privacy.
God, those poor people.
Like selling out books of lies to
Right.
make lots of money.
I mean, call it a work of fiction then.
Yeah.
Some of that is more disturbing than any demon I've ever ran across. So.
All of it.
Yeah, I really feel bad for the people who own the house now. She said that their property value is tanked. They can't sell it for what it's worth because No, who wants to buy it with that kind of trespass issues going on? The neighbors are just furious, and rightfully so. And they're trying to keep an eye out for these poor people as well. I mean, they're calling the police when they're seeing trespassers and they're seeing this and that going on. But it's got to be exhausting for everybody. And Norma also had health issues and back surgeries during all of this time after the movie came out. And having to deal with, I've had 3-4 back surgeries now. I've lost count. 4. I know what it's like to be laid up after a back surgery. And she's can barely walk, and she's having to deal with chasing people off the property. And oh my God, I feel so bad for her. Number one thing, you do not trespass. Whether it's a cemetery or somebody's private property, I don't care. You don't trespass. You don't trespass. We're busy enough when people just asking us to come and investigate. We're busy enough that we don't need to trespass to investigate stuff. No. So respect people's property out there.
And people have no idea how much you use your back until it doesn't work.
Oh God. Oh my God.
It's not just for walking and standing. It's for everything.
Yeah, and Norma's been pretty nice. If that would have been me as the homeowner, they would see the business end of a shotgun. I would not be so nice. I mean,
we got a lot of places here in Idaho that you end up shot.
Yeah.
If you start trespassing in the middle of the night.
Yeah.
Somewhere.
I mean, it's a big deal, and it's a state law now, even for hunting. You don't trespass. Mm-hmm. It's a big fine. It's a big deal. So it's respect people, their privacy. If you know of a haunting, respect the people that live there. I mean, that's just.
Yeah, and the other thing, you don't have to embellish a story.
No, let the paranormal, like I said, maybe
tell the truth, man. Some of that stuff out there can sell as many books, as many movies.
Oh yeah.
Just by keeping it real. Yeah,
I mean, I think about all of our investigations and the craziness that we've seen. That there could have been a lot of books out there. Mm-hmm. Paranormal's going to happen, and like I said, maybe it did happen for Andrea, and her family. But don't make when she's making claims about what Norma's experiencing, and Norma's saying, "What? Never happened. I run a child daycare center here. Babies are not levitating all over the house."
That would be cool, though.
That would be cool, though, wouldn't it? Mm-hmm. Yeah, it would be.
Document.
I don't know. Interesting, though. Again, it kind of comes full circle because you started off talking about the Glatzels, and Warren's involvement, and then into the Conjuring, Warren's involvement, the lawsuits, Warren's involvement. It's kind of a weird.
Me getting thrown out of the theater.
Warren's involvement. It all
comes back full circle.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you for joining us today here on Speaking of Spirits. We're glad you could be with us. Catch us on the next podcast. And for all that is holy, leave people alone, man. Do not trespass. Thank you.
Thank you.
On the next broadcast.
Ha 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 ha.